What's going on, everybody? Hazard Garage here, and today we are at Bimmer PhD Motorsports in Pasadena, California, because we are getting the rod bearings done on the M3. Now everybody, meet Tim. He's the owner and master tech over at Bimmer PhD, and he's going to be working on the M3 after he finishes whatever this is.
Alright, so we're going to break this down in 3 steps. First, we're going to support the engine from the top using this brace, and then we'll go ahead and loosen the engine mounts. Then once we get it up in the air, we'll go ahead and drop the subframe down, and then we can go ahead and remove the oil pan. Once the oil pan is removed, then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of getting down into the rod bearings. We'll get some new bearings put into it, reverse put it all back together.
Awesome. I'm really excited for you to start working and operating inside the M3 while I go watch in the corner.
There's a moment of truth. Is the engine gonna fall with it? Alright, we got this. What we're trying to do here is loosen it all up. We've got our engine mount over there. That's why we use the jack as a support. So not everybody likes to completely remove the subframe. In my personal opinion, having done this at the dealership, I've probably done over 1,000 recalls on these rod bearings. It's a lot easier with nothing in the way when you're joining torque and 2 angle torques with no subframe than it is hanging over here. And if you're doing this on the ground at your house, you're brave. Now you can see why I said a lot more room to work now.
There's tons of room for activities now. I'm gonna replace that thing.
This is our steering coupler we'll replace before we put it back together. Why it's a good idea, or why it's important to replace the engine mounts, even if you're not doing rod bearings, look at how much taller the dampening part is compared to the stock one or a worn out one.
Wow.
And here you can see how many cracks there are on top. So these engine mounts are pretty much pancaked.
So you would say that's a pretty good time.
If we weren't doing the rod bearings, I would say it's a good time to replace the mounts. But why are you going to spend 3 hours of labor to go ahead and do them when you can put that labor towards doing it effectively during another repair?
Yep.
A good shop should always be encouraging you to do 2 or 3 items to save in the labor costs. Here's our special BMW oil pan removal tool. Underbody with the oil pan removed. Now what we're going to do is remove the oil pump and the pickup tube. I want to make sure the little O-ring you were talking about in the box goes right on over here. This is for the pickup tube, goes into the oil pump. And you can actually see this is really clean for 180,000 miles. You don't have a lot of discoloration.
That's a good sign.
Very good sign. Alright guys, this is what we pulled out of this 180,000 mile motor, S54. Bearing set 1, cylinder number 2, cylinder number 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as you can see, this one's the only one that's kind of wore out, cylinder number 2. The rest of them are still in good condition. Comparatively, here's one we did on a 130,000 mile vehicle. And you can see the discoloration, the bluing right there, and how it's cut into the coppers here and here. And this is common for cylinder 3 and 4 to do that because they get the most amount of heat and the least amount of cooling. So
Now, I don't have any records that the rod bearings were done before, but if we go off the recall that was issued around 2004, then we can guess that it was maybe done around 40 to 60,000 miles. So more than 100,000 miles later, it was good to hear that the rod bearings out of the engine were still in good condition.
we got the top bearing into the main rod. Now we're going to gently push up, gently pull down, make sure you do not collide with the squirter. It fits on here, nice and firm. And remember to line up the 2 parts of your cap, goes back in, You must use the same bolts for the same rod. Do not take them, do not switch them around. That is in the repair instruction from the factory. Same bolts for using the bolts, same bolts from the same rod. Got it all tightened up, good to go. Now we're gonna go ahead and turn the motor and go to number 2. So far we've put the oil pump back, the oil pickup. Make sure you remember that this is backwards thread. Now we're ready to put our oil pan back. And if you look on the corners here, you can see this is where the rear timing case comes together. This is where we want to put Hylamar, between these two joining points here, 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 and here. This is very common to be missed, and that's what will create oil leaks. And over here, the timing case comes together. So you need to put a little bit of high temperature, either silicone. I like to use Hylamar. It stays soft so it doesn't harden, and that way you don't get potential leaks. It's not gonna leak right away if you did it right. It's just gonna last longer. So most of our repairs here at Bimmer PhD, we try to make sure that we do them correctly so that they last 3 years and 36,000 miles. That's what our warranty period is. But if you do this right, there's no reason why it shouldn't last more than that, 80, 90,000 miles, depending on how regular you are with your oil services. So.
All right, we are finally done with the rod bearings. It was a long day. I am so tired, although I didn't do anything. But big shout out to Tim over here at Bimmer PhD Motorsports. Honestly, if you need any work done on your BMW, just do yourself a favor and contact this guy. Again, big shout out, man. Thank you so much for putting in that work all day.
Enjoyed it, man. It was a blast.
All right, thanks so much, man. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.